Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our artist talk for this week. With me today, I have a great artist whom I met in the vertical crypto art residency, which I am a part of the third cohort. And I was like, "Hey, yo, we need to talk for two reasons. Number one, I sick generative art and sick sort of code based art that is like insanely colorful. And the second thing is, you happen to be in Egypt. And so with me today, I have Anna Lucia. Um, and if you want to talk a little bit yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Also, it's a lot of fun to be an artist on the vertical crypto art residency and meet other artists and yeah, I guess I also agreed to join this talk because of that. We have that connection. You're from Egypt. I'm from the Netherlands, but I live in Egypt, and ended up here about 2.5 years ago for a job that had nothing to do with art. So a little bit
Nice.
about me. Yeah, like you said, I make generative art, which for me means that my medium is computer programming. I usually describe it as that I write computer scripts that generate art for me.
Mm.
So I might write down the instructions, and it usually has an element of randomness, so I don't have control over the outputs, more of like a right kind of like a guideline for the computer what to tell what to do.
Mm.
um, and I got into generative art about 3 years ago when I randomly stumbled upon a programming language called Processing, which is specifically designed for artists and designers to kind of have an introduction to coding as a medium. And
Mm.
I didn't have much coding experience. I studied engineering and I dabbled in it a little bit at university, but never really, yeah, never really got good at it or really delved into it. So when I discovered processing, I taught myself how to code and how to make art with code.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and it's been a trip with the with NFTs coming to the floor. It has been an absolute game changer for people who make like this kind of digital native art,
Mhm.
and being able to actually um, have eyeballs on the medium and on the art form.
Yeah, that's actually really cool, and it's like I I remember like first starting to hear about processing and realizing what you can do with it, and realizing that's a whole different world. But the thing that I personally uh like I'm still like building myself up to tackle it just because it's like code based, and it's like just you have to sit down and like semicolons and all that jazz, and it's like yeah, I remember like I took a computers and robotics class in my school, and I remember like my teacher going, at some point you're gonna drool over your thing for an hour or two, and you're gonna find it's like a semicolon. But I think we were learning like C++ or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah, no, for sure, but I you have to be quite precise, especially in processing, which is a library for Java, which
Okay.
can be quite picky in how you write things. And yeah, if you're missing a semicolon, it won't work. Um, but for me, that it is a medium that works really well. So, like I said before, I studied engineering. I'm very much analytical in problem solving, very math based and
Okay.
logic based brain, like kind of how I operate. But I also have this need or this desire to express myself artistically, and I don't like drawing. I don't like painting. I don't really I don't have really have the patience for that kind of medium. And when I
Mhm.
discovered processing, for me, actually, kind of that rule based system just works really, really well. And I kind of also love that it's both. Sometimes I have to solve a little puzzle, a little math puzzle to make things work. And I enjoy that a lot. It's definitely not for everybody, but yeah, I got a lot of satisfaction out of that kind of game between artistry, but at the same time having your little logic puzzles to solve.
Yeah, that's actually great. If my mom was next to me, she would have been like, "I told you so." See, Anubis, math is not useless. Math is beautiful. Because my mom is a statistician, and so her thing is just like math and like
Yeah.
word equations and shit. And I'm just like, I just want the apples, mom. Like I don't want to know how
Yeah.
many apples the boy has. I just want them. But
Oh
I
gosh, that's so funny because my that you say like these like sums that you get. When I was a little kid and we would go on like a really long car drive to maybe visit family or something, my mom would actually make up these kind of sums for me, these little stories that I had to solve because it would keep me quiet and occupied. So she would go like, the boy has 3 apples and he sells them for $5. Like how much did he make? And then like,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay,
Such a
so
nerd.
you're like a math genius. All right, that is good to know. That is good to know. I mean, well, this might be a bit of a random question, but do you happen to play chess at all as well? Is that because like I've had there has happened to be a line of mathematicians in my family. I say a line, but it's
Yeah.
like two people, and both of them fucking love chess like insanely, and so
Yeah,
I
interesting. I
uh,
get that question more often. People always kind of assume that I might be into chess, but no, I know how to play chess, as in, like, I know what is the objective of the game and how the
hmm.
pawns and all the chess pieces move and behave, the rules. But yeah, no, I've never really gotten into it.
Oh, okay. My mom used
Yeah.
to love it, but she would give up when her when the queen would die, and I would be like, why? And she's like,
Like,
that's your most
still.
like you could still win, but she's like, that's your most movable sort of like that's your most utilized powerful thing. If you lose it, you're pretty much dead. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, ma. And then I've been I've sort of like I haven't played chess ever since because once I learned how to beat her, I was like, okay, this is boring. Where's the next master? There is no master. I was when you were talking about your art, I was actually going to mention sort of the beginnings. Have you delved at all into like the early beginnings of generative like code based art, like in the '60s in America? And well, I think some of it may have come out of Europe as well. If I,
Yeah, like I'm definitely aware of like the early generative art a lot.
mm,
Really the pioneers of computer art. Um, it's interesting. There's kind of two schools indeed. There's like a group of artists coming out of the United States, and I think the
mm,
most of them were mathematicians that actually worked for often the military, and they had access to these labs and computers and pen plotters, and they started to use these pen plotters to also make art. So what a pen plotter is, it's
mm,
literally like a pen that can be moved horizontally or vertically, and you can program it so that it kind of like draws onto the paper. And I started experimenting with that. But I think the fact that these were like often just like um, mathematicians working for the army, there
mm,
wasn't really a great conversation with the art world at that moment. Like you can
mm,
imagine that that just wasn't really an instant click. And in Europe, I think like one of my favorite artists that many people will bring up is Frida Molnar, who's a Hungarian woman, moved to Paris and started working with code-based art on the computer of her husband at his job, and she had more like an art background. So I think in Europe you see more that people who have a traditional art background start using code as a medium. But it's a very interesting history because actually for the longest time, code-based art has never really been accepted into the mainstream arts
mm,
as a medium. And like a friend of mine, Raphael de Courville, also a great artist, I did one of our courses at the PCA Residency, he put out a tweet. He said, like, at all the time that he was at art school, he heard about like 20 times about how artists use shit as a medium to make art, and only
Yeah.
once about like how they used code to make
Oh my
art, you know. So it is to see actually NFTs coming up and having so many eyeballs on this medium and attention is just, it's just really beautiful. Yeah.
It's like it's crazy to me that artists like reject technology. Like I say this,
Yeah.
like this comes up in almost every talk where it's like, you know, I wanted to bring this up when we were talking to the art historian because she was like, you know, like the fine art world has been dealing with technology, and I was like, where? Like the fine art world has been dealing with circuit bending shit for like the last 70 years when we've had VR. Like, come on, please. Like,
Yeah.
not to get too mad like at the person, but it's like the art world has historically, right, and canonically, if we will, has been 70 or more years behind on every fucking
Mhm.
movement out there. Like it's
Mhm.
like the same art. Like it's weird to me because it's like you would think they would have learned from the impressionists. Nope. The cubists. Nope. Modernists. Nope. What about postmodernists? Nope. We're like photography, not even close. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's like I took a time-based class where it was like we will teach you guys how to work on 16 millimeter film, which was cool. It's a really
Yeah.
cool experience, but it's also like,
Mhm.
yo, that's cool. Hollywood got fucking CGI. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, can we at least hybridize both? And they're like, yeah, but it's like, that's not real fine art. And it's like, well, then what makes it fine art? Is it the institution? And I think one of the best thing about generative code, right? And looking at your work is like, that's one of the very first things that I noticed about your work is like, it within it is like a heavy use of what in art school would be like, oh, like the artistic techniques, right, where it's like good
Mhm.
composition, good color usage,
Mm.
but artists would fucking break their backs trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve through just like acrylics and stuff like that,
Mm.
you know and to reject
For sure.
like the ability to like produce such works like that, it's to me it's like, why, what are you doing, you know
And the, yeah, like what you said, they would break their backs. Like the amount of work you can produce with code is crazy, because it's just like such a fast medium. It's like, um, you're automating a process in a way. And yeah, I'm trying to think like what more, like where this rejection comes from, but that, that also instills in me, especially being, so I was working before as an engineer. I did do 1 year of art school, but I rejected that path pretty quickly. Um, and
Mm.
I've been doing this in my spare time while I was working full time. Like any moment that I had free, I would spend on making that art. And now with NFTs, I find a way to make a living out of it, which is absolutely amazing. And now suddenly, slowly, you start seeing art institutions coming. I see them coming my way, being interested. And I'm not necessarily interested in approaching that myself at the moment. Like
Mm.
obviously if it comes my way, I'm very happy to engage in that conversation and like see if we can do something together. But I I'm also kind of glad with NFTs that you don't have to, if that makes sense. Like
oh it
we've
may
been rejected for 70 years. All right, like it's fine. We found our own way now. We found our own path.
exactly, that's literally it. Like, and it's like it's funny because it's like once you realize how the art world functions, it's just a waiting game where it's like, people here ask like, oh, are the institutions are they ever gonna come? And it's like, just wait. Oh, they'll come running.
Yeah.
It's like they'll literally come running because like it's I've heard this enough in art school. The art world or like the institutions are dying. It's all of that to where it's like the money in the art world is slowly drying up by its elitism and like
Mhm.
this weird cycle that they've built, right? And then here comes this tech that just allows people that would have had to like do like not only slave for 20 years to become established artists, but then, you know, take a gamble with like too many restrictions on them, and then here you are, right, in the middle of Egypt. And I actually wanted to ask about this, right? Because like you are like in this space we like to talk, you know, this space can change lives, you know, if you live in the third world, you're
Mm.
making you actually happen to live in the third world, right? In Egypt, where
Yeah.
if last time last time I checked, the Canadian dollar was worth 18 Egyptian pounds. And so like
And that
sorry?
buys you four and that buys you four falafel sandwiches here on the street as well for that one Canadian dollar.
That's it? Wait, so
Well, maybe those that's
uh wait, a falafel sandwich is now like $4? Sorry, £4?
no, like it's £4. Well, I guess it depends where you are, right? Whether you are in
Okay.
New Cairo or Mahdi,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know.
But it's like,
You can also go to Zuba and pay like £20 for a falafel
oh
sandwich.
my God. Huh. I'm just gonna
Just
stick.
like an FY for the people listening, that's a very like hipster place to get where you can get traditional Egyptian food, but it's completely overpriced compared to what you would probably get a better sandwich on just the street corner 100 meters over.
Yo,
Yeah.
straight up, like in the mornings, like you've probably experienced the traditional like family mornings in Egypt, right? Where it's like somebody goes gets the falafel, somebody gets the food, right? Or the fava
Yeah.
beans to those who are listening, and you just like it's like a store at the end of the street, always, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like the most like, oh, you guys have fucking Um, well, there's only one word for it actually, beledi bread. I can't find other than Egyptian bread, which is like to those listening,
Yeah.
you can fill that shit up with so much food compared to like any other bread I've seen that I actually like. That's one of the things I sit and I think about here. I'm like, man, I wish I had some beledi bread.
Yeah.
But like
And
how? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
now I just had to remember that for my previous work, I would also go out of Cairo and do like site visit more in the north in the Delta, and the breakfast like be even better. Like
Oh,
from like this small village, super fresh. Yeah.
oh, so you okay? You actually got to taste the fallahi, oh sorry, the farmer cookies. Have you tasted those?
Yeah.
Like with the actual butter, like the cat. Oh my god, yo, you're living. So like how, but like how has this space sort of helped in a living in a place like Egypt where it's not as financially sort of viable? Like one of my biggest, like the biggest thing I realized in university, although like I hated the institution, is like, yo, this is like how I as an artist like enter into sort of any sort of global art world. If I was in Egypt, that's pretty much fucking
Yeah.
impossible. Like dealing with the fine
Yeah.
art world there. And so here you are, you know, in the middle as people in the space to say like in the middle of the intersection of art and technology. And then
And
also
being
go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been interesting. And I think if, like, the reason why I stay here is my partner is Egyptian. He has a company here and we want to live here together.
Hmm.
I love the country. I'm very happy to be here. But if it wasn't for NFTs, if I would want to build something up as a fine artist, it would be so hard. Either you just travel up and down a lot still to like maybe Europe and try to like network in those areas. But here in Egypt, there's interesting things going on. Like, of course, there's artists here and they do very interesting things, but there's just at the same time, there's not the resources to actually give them the recognition that they deserve. And there's also a big element of like artists not being able to fully express themselves here because of the economic climate that the country is in. So a lot of Egyptian artists might not necessarily be here in Egypt, or not, if they are in Egypt, can't put the art out that they actually want to put out. And then I would also have a feeling like some people have spoken to me now, like, oh, would you like to do a show in Egypt? And then I look at my work and like my identity, and I just feel like, yeah, even though I live here and I have a life here, I feel that like my work to show that in Cairo wouldn't really make that much sense because my work isn't that much about
Mhm.
the place where I live. And because there's also already like such few opportunities and spaces for artists, I would also like not want to take up that space in a way. So, but yeah, it has been very interesting that I get to do this while being in Cairo, and also don't really have a desire to change that. It's also kind of nice to be here and be like also in a, yeah, environment that is sometimes like completely different. Like for example, I would be behind my computer for 5 hours like coding and on Twitter, and you see like the whole crypto space pass you by, and then I take the metro and I'm in downtown Cairo and I'm like, oh yeah, wait, this is the world where I'm actually at.
Yo, and
this this is also happening.
you take the metro too. Damn. For those
Yeah.
listening, like the metro in Egypt is like it's yeah, I compare it's like what like New York. Like I heard stories about New York, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, it probably runs like Egypt, you know. But it's like I imagine it's also interesting because like there is so much tech in this space that's not available in the third world that it's like complete like well, I don't know if it's cultural whiplash or I don't know how to classify it, but you're like immediately switching from like one place where it's like, you know, yo, we have VR, the Oculus, right? Let's project
Yeah,
stuff, you know, the metaverse, and you immediately switched. And we talked this about DMs to like the bread seller on the bike, right, or like the tuk
exactly.
tuk,
Yeah.
and it's like I remember I'm starting to realize being in Canada, like in Egypt, you see a pretty unusual shit for the time you're living in, you know, like I don't know if you still see it now, but it's like I remember when I was a kid, there was like a blacksmith close to my grandma's house, and this dude was like a
Mhm.
medieval blacksmith, like no joke. He had like the thing. I don't know what the fuck you call it. I literally googled medieval blacksmith and I found the stuff he was using, and I was like, what the fuck? This
Yeah.
was, and so like it's like having your feet in two different worlds, right? And
For sure. And I think also Cairo itself is in two different worlds. It is a very interesting city because you can um for example go to like the newer areas that are being built in the desert towards the west and the east that are very high end, very luxury, and I walk there, I'm like, am I in Dubai? Like what's going on? Like I feel like the Netherlands is behind on what's going on there. And then like you go somewhere else and they're like glass blowers or horse and carriage. I see
yeah,
donkeys like every day in a cart. So this is very interesting, and it is in a way, I think Cairo is a very unique city, but I don't. I at the same time, I think it is actually a way of that maybe the majority of the world population lives. Not necessarily in the way that it is in Cairo, but still maybe the standard of living. I think it is actually where the majority of the world population might be, and to then be in this crypto space where it's like really really pushing the edge, and it's always talked about like it's so big and it's groundbreaking, and you're like, yeah, it is groundbreaking, but for like the 5% of the global population, it's it's also always kind of a reality check of what's really going on in the world or what's really relevant, which is also very healthy actually if you're in a crypto space to have that reality check on a daily basis, I think, actually.
yeah, I imagine, right? It's like we have dudes spending their whole day with VR headsets or like looking at charts, making and losing insane amounts of money, and it's like I've seen enough memes and I've seen enough people on Twitter to like realize like, oh, there's a warped sense of view here of like how the
Mm,
world is if you spend too much time in the space, because it just
yeah.
like the talk becomes all encompassing and to like in weird things, and you're like, okay, like let's calm down here, you know, like you're talking about like mass adoption, and it's like people in like the third world still don't know like how to fully like use certain websites to like functionality. Like, let's calm down. Like some
Yeah.
parts of the world like have basic access to internet, right? And we're dealing with a space that needs like high speed upload if you don't want to like die. Like just
Yeah.
waiting for shit, and then the third world is still dealing with like shit internet speeds. Like that alone is like a big
Exactly.
gap.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think that, like, I do see people here also very interested in NFTs and very interested in also crypto itself.
Hmm.
Um, there will be pockets of the people here that will adopt it, and I'm actually very excited for that, to see that happen. Um, I know, like, an Egyptian, quite a famous Egyptian belly dancer who's put out her first NFTs,
What?
which is really cool. Yeah. Um,
Wait, okay.
yeah.
Speaking of belly dancing, this
Yeah.
is this is just quick sidebar.
Oh,
Has
yeah,
you
to explain why. Yeah.
No, no, no. Have you seen your man's belly dance?
My man.
Yeah, your partner.
No, he knows how to do that?
Hey, yeah, all right. Just listen, listen. This is I when I told this to my girlfriend, she was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah." You'll never catch us doing it unless it's at a wedding. But yeah, almost every Egyptian man knows how to belly dance. That's not even
Awesome.
like so like just sorry. I knew for a fact that that was gonna be a question because it's like every person who's not from Egypt like gets surprised that men know how to belly dance, and they're like when they see it, it's like what the fuck is this? Because like how like men are like like hey I'm a man, and then when they belly dance, it's like okay, that whole thing is gone. This man is shaking his ass in front of
Gosh, I should ask him next time that we're on a dance floor and he had a few. I'll ask him to show me belly dancing.
That's actually interesting. A belly dancer, like an Egyptian belly dancer, is dropping their NFTs,
Yeah,
and it's like
exactly. I mean, like, I think it's rad.
are you like in contacts with him? Because like it's also interesting that a generative artist is in contact with a belly dancer who's dropping NFTs. You know?
Yeah, no, yeah, I am in contact with her, and I do think, like, I've spoken with quite a few artists here interested, and I have also, like, talking with some people to, like, help them out to setting it all up, like giving them a little, come over to my place. I'll show you how to set it up, how to get a wallet, and um, yeah, I've been definitely thinking of kind of informally trying to onboard more artists here.
I don't. That's actually respect. I respect it. That's
Yeah.
if I had 100 emojis, I would be throwing them up. Just because like I've tried to onboard people in this space, and it's just even in Egypt, I'm like, yo, get in on this. You might have to use peer to peer pay, but it's like get in on this, and it's hard. I've also realized it's hard when you don't have a person like physically next to you telling you, yo, no, no,
Yeah.
point at this, right? Over like Discord and
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like, all right, so like, given how long you've been well, actually, how long have you been in the space? When did you join the NFT scene?
Well, I have been lurking on the sidelines, I would say, from March of 2021.
Okay.
Well, to back up, I started in crypto back in 2017 during that first, like, really
Oh,
uh,
okay.
boom. And I, like, dabbled a bit in some trading and had some fun there. I remember even looking at buying some land in Decentraland, and it was like $25 at the time. And then I spoke about it with a friend, and he just looked at me like, "You're insane! Like, now you're taking it too far." Because he was already a little bit, like, on edge of me and my crypto trading. So I didn't do it. Like,
Oh,
should have never listened to that person anyways. And then, like, the crypto winter came, and I kind of uh, forgot about it. And then, yeah, in March of 2021, it came back on my radar through the generative artist community that started experimenting with, like, seeing what art blocks was doing for generative art, and more of kind of my peers started playing around with it.
Mm.
And then I have been chatting already with It's All Your Yard, or IXL, so she goes by, a really quite famous generative artist. I was chatting with her and she was just like, when are you going to drop your NFT? I'm like, I don't know. And she sent me a foundation invite. She was like, here you go. You go and mint your NFTs. So then
Nice.
I was like, okay, no going back now. And then I minted my first NFT in August of 2021.
And
Yeah.
oh wow, okay. And it's like, are you full time art now? Is that what's going on? Or
Yeah, now I'm full-time art. In October of last year, my contract came to an end, and the company kind of offered to extend it also here in Egypt. And then I was like, you know what? This seems like a very natural way to kind of leave that behind. Contract is ending anyways. Let's see what happens. And I kind of had the idea, let's just see what happens for a year because, no harm done. I can go back to my kind of old field if I want to after a year. But so far it's been great, and I really, really hope I don't have to go back to working for a boss again.
I don't think so. I mean, like one of the things I was looking at your work like when we first talked because you were like, "Yo, I'm living in Egypt." I was like, "All right, cool. Who is Anna Lucia?" And then I'm like, "Wait, hold on. You dropped on art blocks? Like what? Who?"
Yeah,
And so to see like how much you've also achieved in the span from August till now, right? That's a lot of work and a lot of success. Like just I imagine like that's all you need, right? If you're like looking for like any more proof, that's sort of
that's good. Yeah.
and like
Yeah. Art blocks was an experience.
did you enjoy it or was it or was it I'm curious.
No, I definitely really enjoyed doing something on art blocks. I already had art blocks on my radar in March, April, like I said, but I felt very insecure about my own coding capacities because like still the space was really new and there wasn't that much information, and I was just like, surely I won't be able to do this kind of like classic kind of imposter system syndrome or something. And then at some point, uh, a friend of mine, generative artist, Aaron Penet, he was like, "Oh, don't you want to drop something on art blocks?" And I was like, "Can I do that?" He's like, "Hell yeah!" So then, yeah,
Damn.
and I could. I was like, "Oh yeah, I can actually figure this out, and it's all fine." And I did a project that was inspired by how looms work. So I started to look at how like
Okay.
uh, a loom to like hand weave fabrics. I kind of took that apart and really looked at how they work. It's quite an intricate system of like it has paddles that you have to press and then shafts that go up and like threads tied everywhere. So I kind of unpacked all of that and literally kind of took how one of those hand weaving looms works and wrote an algorithm that completely emulates that system. And then what is the interesting thing on our blocks is that for maybe people who don't know, so your algorithm is loaded like into the Ethereum blockchain. And then at the moment that you mint one of these NFTs, you don't know what you're actually going to be buying. But like at the moment that you mint the NFT, a hash is generated that will be like the input for the algorithm, and that generates your NFT. And then you only see it like after it's been minted. So what my system does, like at the moment that you mint one of these NFTs, it generates a punching card, like one of these like really old ways that we use to communicate to computers. So it kind of um, generates a digital punching card, and that creates the artwork based on that. So yeah, it was a very interesting what I really enjoyed about doing art blocks, because it's like long form generative art, because you have to build like really a system that can have like one algorithm that can have like many outputs, like 200 to 1,000 outputs. you have to do quite a lot of research and have like quite a solid system. And it was very interesting to actually like do more research into an algorithm and really build something up like that. Yeah, it was cool.
It also it sounds like it runs similar to like FX hash. No, is that
Yes, exactly. Yeah, FX hash is definitely kind of the art blocks,
okay?
a similar concept as art blocks, but then on Tezos. But I do think that they're like I both really appreciate both platforms, but for quite different reasons. On
Mm,
art blocks, there is like an onboarding procedure. Not they when you apply, they're going to check your code. Like, is your code actually going to work on our system? And there's also even a curation system, like a curation built in. Like some artists do created jobs where, and I feel like um, you can't be very experimental, or
mm,
you can be experimental, but I mean like the price that is being asked for an average art blocks project is like maybe 0.1 ETH per mint, and that's still a big um, and those are big collections of like 200 to 1,000 pieces. So you want to put something substantial there. Like, I'm not just going to drop anything on art blogs. I'm going to put something like well researched with a lot of thought, very solid. That's what I would release on art blogs. Whereas FX hash is like very experimental. Anybody can drop anything on there. Also, you're not really bound by a lot of limitations, as because you basically what you upload up to FX hash is a zip file of anything that can run in the browser. So you're like have a lot more freedoms in like which libraries you can use for your code. Nobody really checks. Anybody can drop whenever, which is a lot of fun as well. To do smaller drops, more experimental drops. So I really appreciate both platforms, but different reasons. Like, yeah, art blocks is more, say, really not to say that there's no high
mm.
quality art Tezos, but it's yeah,
Like to me, it's like as a person who could never afford art blocks, FX hash has been like super nice, right? Like although some of
yeah,
my purchases now looking at them have been somewhat questionable. um like I think like some of the stuff I've been able to find on FX hash essentially has gotten me interested into coding as well, just because
yeah,
like I didn't realize that you can use processing and sort of coding to like fuck with the images that you paint. And only after
yeah,
seeing somebody use that on FX hash, I was like, oh wait a minute, you can do this too. Like,
exactly. And that's kind of cool what happens on FX hash, because there's a lot of less constraints and it's a lot more open. There's a lot more experimentation. And maybe some collectors are like, I'm only gonna collect work that is 100% code based, and they're quite maybe purist in that way. But what you also see indeed in FX hash is like photographers playing with different layers,
mhm.
and or illustrators combining different layers together, which can also produce like very interesting works. There have been works that have been using like data sets, cool stuff happening. And I've also become like a big collector, especially of kind of these under the radar projects that cost one test that nobody looks at, and I'm
Right.
just looking at it like, why is nobody buying this? This is so cool. But
It's
yeah,
like there's like I'm starting to realize like there are legitimately some gems on
yeah,
FX hash that I just look at them like, no way, is this actually real? And then also like, well, since you've dropped on FX hash, no, you
yeah,
have.
also,
And
yeah.
how was your experience like like it being so free compared to art blocks where anybody can sort of mint and all of that? and like
Uh,
that freedom that you're offered, sort of like, have you been able to just like mint other, like usually like what I've done, right? I sometimes I use Tezos as like the minting for my studies and like experimentations,
mhm.
and so has that sort of been like the same, where it's like I'm gonna mint like a code here that I'm just conceptualizing or that I think will work, or is it sort of because like uh, it there's like a vast difference, right, in FX hash because of how open it is. Like I'm looking at a
Yeah.
work, like there is this dude, or there's this account called Everlasting Building, and like
Mhm.
it's a liminal space account. I don't know how the fuck they're doing whatever the fuck they're doing, bro. But it's like CGI rendered stuff into FX hash that I'm like, sorry, not CGI, 3D. And so it's like I'm also a fan of like the liminal space sort of lore. To me, it's like very,
Mhm.
it's like very internet, Slender Man culture vibes and that shit. And so, but to see like the difference between like somebody who's like, yo, I'm gonna render you a fucking room, like legitimately 3D render a room, and then you can see the noise texture get added on top after. And
Mm,
that's actually one of the cool things about FX Hash as well, is you can see the works generate in front of you. Like if it's like a heavy work, it takes a bit and you get to see the elements pop in.
mm.
But then on the other side, you have some people that like mint their experiments, or even on the worst side, you have people that will just like follow a YouTube tutorial and be like, all right, put it up, let's go.
Yeah.
And so like,
Yeah, and I think that I have found that interesting as being kind of a generative artist to see that develop because I've been kind of crafting my skills and working on my skill set for the last 3 years, and now I'm at a point where I'm able to make the work that I make, but it takes quite a lot of patience to, unless maybe you have it already, you have a programmer background, which I didn't. I just also had to learn how to code while I was learning how to make art with code. And it takes a while to actually make nice things with it, to make good things with it, to make art with it. And sometimes I see these works being minted where I'm like, have patience. Just do a few more tutorials, play around a bit more, and then start minting your work, I think. But I don't know how I would have dealt with that if I would have discovered creative coding at this moment. Whether I would have already been minting the work immediately.
no,
Anyways,
it's
what? Yeah, what I was
no,
also.
mm,
You want to say something about it, or?
no. I'll save it for later.
Okay. What I've noticed is my way of collecting on FX Hash is that, so you have like the really kind of the pro collectors who have very impressive collections and they have like all the top pieces, and the and I think there's also a thing amongst collectors that you want to have like the piece that is trending, that's hot, probably maybe also to maybe make some money to buy more art, all that play. But well, I don't have the spare cash to
Mm,
spend on like the really expensive pieces, even though I really appreciate them and think they're absolutely gorgeous. I just don't have that space at the moment. So, the way that I'm collecting an FX hash is really as if I'm like at a flea market and I try to find like a hidden gem somewhere. Like I'm going through the full explore page and be like, what have people not seen that is actually really, really
right?
amazing? And I'm taking so much pleasure in that. Um,
It's have you minted on Hen at all? Like
yes,
Hikenang?
so I have. So when I just started with NFTs, I started on Foundation, and then I was also minting on Hikanang because similarly as maybe between our blocks and FX hash, I felt I could be more experimental on Hikanang, on Han, than on Foundation as one-on-ones that you would sell on ETH. I felt, to put more like bigger works on there.
Mm,
And yeah, I had a lot of fun on Hen. To be honest, like since it has disappeared, I haven't done, except for FX Hash, I haven't done projects on Tezos yet anymore. And I to be honest, I don't know where to go at this point. Like, I know the
Mm.
platforms that are out there. There's like Versum, and there's Object, and there's like Taya and Hikanan, or something is still up or not. There's these, but like, it's not the same. So
I agree with you 100%. Like the moment Hiketnunk went down, like my collecting on Tezos got cut by more than 70%. Because my it
yeah,
was it was like a favorite thing of mine to legitimately, and this is just like me. I would like roll myself a J and like sit at 2 in the morning and just scroll, and like the shit that I would find, it would blow my fucking mind. Because like I found a video game
that's,
that way that was like I essentially, I remember writing a whole article where I was like, I have an infinite universe in this NFT, because it was like you would change and the layout of the room would change. I was like, okay, this, if you like build a world like this, infinite universe, let's go. And it's like somebody built a game, somebody had like a Polaroid zine that you could flip through, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then
yeah.
ever since it went down, I was like, Object is cool, but the discoverability, even just to find cool artists on Object, is just eh. It's like,
Mm,
and then FX Hash legitimately is like one of the things where it's like, I can scroll through that, but it's also, I don't collect as much as I used to on
yeah,
it. Which it's like, it's a shame, because like Hen was like a really nice community. It really was.
it was. Have you explored Versum at all? So I'm working on a collaboration at the moment, and I'm
Mm.
gonna do my first NFT on Versum. So I'm very curious about
I
how
have
that's going
not.
to be.
Um, Give me 1 second. I will. I've heard like their name has been thrown around for a while.
Yeah,
Um.
their user interface is really nice. I know quite some. I've scrolled through it. It looks quite. Yeah, the art looks cool. You can make boards, which is really cool. Almost as if you can have
Oh
like
wow.
a Pinterest board, but then just full of really cool thematic NFTs. Um,
Does
so yeah.
does it like view your bot NFTs already and all that jazz?
Oh, like you have on OBG that on Object that you see like everything that you've bought on Tezos. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Because
haven't delved in deep enough, but I can imagine it does.
I mean, because it's like, like that's one of the things where it's like I realized even about um when, what is it, Rarible included the, what is it, their Tezos integration or whatever,
Mhm.
that I was like, half of my stuff wasn't even there, and I was like, hey yo,
No.
like, no, it's like something. So like I think the problem with all of these is like it's an indexing problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like they were like, yeah, man, we'll update our indexer. And I was like, oh fuck, okay. And so it's like one of the things that I like is like when a website sort of functions like OpenSea, but also Hen didn't function like OpenSea. But so far, like I just Googled Versum and like went on it, and it's like it looks pretty cool. I've been hearing about it
Right.
for as long as Hen, if that makes sense.
I think
Has
it's
it?
yeah. It was like announced for a very long time, but they only launched a couple of months ago. And their
Okay.
UI is quite cool. Yeah,
I might be thinking of another website then.
maybe. Yeah.
But I mean, well, I'm actually curious. Like, how does a collaboration work as a generative artist? Like, are you just like, here, I've generated this. Here's the image and the file I've generated. Fuck with it. Or you're like sending the code, yo, modify your code, add the like the two slash marks where, like you put the notes like this is my code, you know.
Yeah, that's a very great question, actually. How we are doing it is kind of like, in a way, how you just described.
Oh, okay.
So the last point that you described. So the person that I'm working, I think I can already talk about it because we're gonna launch it soon. It's together with Rafael de Courville that I mentioned before already. You can find us Sable Ralph on Twitter, and
Stable Ralph? Is
Sable
it
Ralph. Yeah.
stable route. All right.
Yeah. And he has done multiple series creating gemstones that he has called carrots, and he has released those on FX Hash. And now he has asked a few different artists to collaborate, make a piece based on his piece. So what he indeed did is that he has shared code with me on a GitHub page, and there's a part of the code that he has made specifically in such a way that I can, play with it and kind of make my own, have that base of his work of this gemstone and that system of generating a gemstone, but then have my interpretation of that on top of it, kind of
Yo,
mixed with my art.
that's
Yeah, it's
cool.
very fun.
Oh my god, that's sort of better than like that's equal, literally, or more than painting on the same canvas as an artist, because it's like it's not even painting on the same canvas. It's like we're threading. It's like we're gonna build this canvas from the ground up, and
Yeah,
like it's like we're using both of our threads. Like what the
yeah.
hey
No,
yo.
it's Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. Usually, I'm not really. I find collaborations difficult. I
Mm,
usually kind of um, uh, don't um, engage with it, but because he's an incredible artist, so I would love to work with him in that way. And also the way that he proposed to do it was really like, oh, this is great. This is really gonna work. This is really cool. Yeah. And then I also realized looking at the code that he built up, I'm like, I'm such a mess. Like it was so neat, well documented. Like, oh gosh, I hope nobody ever like I would never do that. I would never share my code. I would be so ashamed of the mess.
like yeah, no, I know how you feel a little bit, because I use a program called Designer for. It's like a.
Yeah.
Oh, you know of it?
Yeah, I've played around with it a bit. Yeah.
Hey, yo, all right, respect. All right, if I could fist bump you right now, I would have. Like, this is one of my moments where I fist bump people. Like, yo, all right, let's go. And like, to me, it's like if somebody saw the nodes and like, because like my thing is like, I understand how touch designer works, right? But I'm not proficient enough to like generate like the systems that I need. So I create like rigs of like a file of mine is like three tutorials into one, right? That is just like
Mhm.
a clusterfuck of just like nodes that at some point I start to lose understanding of what I just created. And so like if somebody looks at my shit, I'm like, good luck with that. Like fuck, I don't know, like, but yeah, no, with code, I imagine like, could you imagine if like he sent you the code and then it doesn't function and you have to find like the missing semicolon for him? I would lose my shit. Oh my god.
Yeah. No. No. I I gave a creative coding course here in Cairo actually end of last year together with the Egyptian creative coder who also lives in Cairo. Um, and it's a lot of fun, like that you're the participants of the workshop and the course they like start coding and then suddenly they run into an error and they are like, "Can you help me?" And you come over and you just look at it and you're like, "This
Semicolon.
might take a while."
Oh,
Like,
or
I'm
it's just
sorry.
or
Sometimes it's very simple, but sometimes you're just like, oh no, what's going on here? I'm the teacher. I should know, but I don't know.
no, I had a similar like. Well, I'm curious. Like, was this just like you guys doing this workshop, or was it for like an organization? Because like there's a specific organization that I know in Egypt that's like it does like a bunch of stuff. And I'm curious if it's the same one. Like, does it happen to be Adif at all? I probably talked about this.
No, it wasn't for ADEF. I think I'm not sure if we talked about ADEF before. Um, it wasn't for ADEF. There, I've done one workshop with Medrar. I don't know if you know them. And
I
then the longer course that I did was for a cultural center in downtown called Cocoon, but they're quite new. It was very nice. It was very satisfying to both teach live because
mm,
people have asked me to do online courses like teach online before, but I don't think I would really get a lot of satisfaction um, from that. So to actually be together in the space with people, I really enjoy that if you're teaching. Yeah, and introduce people to a completely new medium was uh, yeah, a lot of fun.
I it's also like I mean, all I'm gonna say is like if you ever get a chance to go to Udif and like do something there, I would recommend it. Like that's where I got my first sort of where I was there, they were like, "Yo, we're gonna teach you about like Python," and I was like,
Mm.
"Cool." I didn't. I like all I remember like I remember they're like Linux is the best, so I downloaded Linux, and I don't remember a single fucking thing about Python now. But it's like to see that world and also like how it functions is really cool. And then I mean, it's like to realize also like oh, there's like digital coding sort of interest, like specifically like generative art based on coding is people are interested in Egypt, like sort of.
Yeah, for sure. And I think actually what is very interesting about code as a medium is that there is a certain threshold that you need to pass because you would need to have access to a computer and probably an internet connection and some understanding of the English language, which
Mm,
is definitely a barrier to entry for many people here. However, if you are at that level, if you have access to internet, you understand English, you have access to a computer, code is a very, very low resource medium because most of the resources out there are open source and free to learn. The programs that we use are open source and free, and then also you don't have to buy materials, outside of that computer that you need access to and that internet connection, and you can make art. You don't have to buy paint, you don't have to pay for printing costs. So I do actually think in that sense it's also a very interesting medium to teach people. You don't need a big workshop, or in a way it's quite low resource.
yeah, it's I couldn't have put it best. Like that's the same. I use the same argument for digital art. Like
Yeah.
like I don't need like the one thing I wish it's like if only code on both like Photoshop side and also like generative stuff side could blend like oils. Well, we're good. We're chilling. I'm like let's go. But we have to wait upon the tech to develop further. Um, I know both of us have a class in 20 minutes, right? And so
We do
before I end this,
final
uh
questions.
yeah, well no, I was just going to say like is there any to those listening, right? Like is there any alpha? Well, you already dropped the collaboration alpha, but like is there any like, upcoming things alpha or any big plans that you have that you would like to let people know? Um
Yes, for sure. For sure. So there's the collaboration with Sable Ralph that I'm very excited about. That's gonna drop the 20th March, so that's already pretty soon, wrapping up. I do definitely think that there is something new in the works for FX Hash. Um, yeah, I kind of stumbled upon something that's very interesting, so I'm gonna drop that on FX Hash, hopefully early April. Before I forget, I'm part of a group show called Artists Who Code in collaboration with Vellum LA, a gallery in Los Angeles, and Artsy.
oh wow,
Also,
artsy.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, so this is talking about the institutions coming your way. I'm going to be part of, I think, the second NFT auction that Artsy is going to do on their platform.
hey, what I yo.
Yeah.
All right, so to those listening, Anna Lucia is now turning into the tournament owner, who is the final boss, which you fight to then find out. Oh no, he is the tournament owner. I cannot beat him because they run the whole show. Fuck. All right, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. No, yeah. Sometimes I'm super grateful for these opportunities. And then I'm just kind of thinking like, how did this happen? Our school dropout taught myself how to code, and here we are. I'm having an auction on Artsy, the same platform that like auctions off like pieces from Banksy and I don't know who. But yeah, here we go.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Um,
That's like the
so
biggest
that's
flex you can have.
and I'm very excited about the show because it's called Artists Who Code, but everybody in the show is either female identifying or non-binary.
Okay.
And yeah, and also 5% of the proceeds will go to an organization called Girls Who Code. Um,
Nice.
so that's an
Nice.
organization that, yeah, tries to get young girls interested in coding. And I think what is very interesting about the show is that you really, really see the diversity of code as a medium. I would describe my form of generative art as quite like a classic way of generative art um, that I really enjoy. But then, like in this show, there's also more like machine learning and artificial intelligence on there, and like more mental work. Really exciting to be part of, and it's gonna also have, I think, a physical exhibition. So if you're in Los Angeles, check it out.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, Anna, thank you for coming. I have included your Twitter and your link tree as well as your foundation and
Awesome.
Hiket Nanka links down in the description. Those who are
Cool.
listening, go buy some of the work. Go bid on it if it's possible. Go get into wars, bidding wars.
Yeah,
You
because last thing, I'm also working on something that might
oh
happen on our blogs at some point further down in the year,
hey
which is
oh
also collaboration, but can't share too much about it yet. But
this
going to
is
be related to textile art again, and I'm very, very excited about the project. So a lot going on.
hell yeah, this
So
is
yeah,
we just got major alpha. To those listening, you got the alpha. If you
get
don't
in
have
early.
exactly as my friends say, if you don't have the bag, get your bag up. All right. This is don't but yeah. All right, Anna, thank you for coming. This was great. To those
For
listening,
having
go
me.
go follow her, go buy the work, go do your thing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.